Shalom, shalom. All praises, honor, and glory, it goes to Yahawah, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Lakah Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles, double honors to the elders of Great Millstone. Yahawah, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Brakathum to the hopeful elect, shalom, shalom. It's a brother Tajiyar Bayamya from the GMS Kansas City Church. And, today, kind of like a late night lesson. Usually I say my lessons for the morning, but, the Spirit just told me, why not get it in, why go ahead and wait for the morning? We can just do it now, but the title of the lesson is going to be Embrace Being the Underdog. All right? Because the underdogs are the ones that have the best story. The underdogs are the ones that people root for. All right. And so the video I did earlier today entitled, I forgot the titles, but, going into having a good name. You see, the underdog, those are the ones that don't have a name. Those are the ones whose name is rising and then eventually becomes, well known, which, it's obvious, this truth isn't necessarily about boosting ourselves, but, we put a lot into the truth, and brothers look for the fruits of that labor, because we do put a lot of energy into it, even summers like this summer when it's hot as hell, man. I be praying for some brothers. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, but like I was saying, the underdog, you gotta love being the one that gets counted out. Kendrick got that song, I love when you count me out. All right. So he said, I love when you count me out, because that means, there's room to prove people wrong, which we not, like I say, we not in the truth to prove people wrong, because we ultimately know that the things that we say are true. But getting that I told you so moment, that feels so good, because you have that inner belief, even though the world may not believe. In the mind of the underdog, he already believes, regardless of what critics say. You see, that inward belief and faith, man. That's what gives you the ability to overcome the world, man. How Shah say, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, we all know how small that is. But this is a Sirach. We're gonna go here, Sirach chapter 11 and 1. It says, wisdom lifted up the head of him that is of low degree, and maketh him sit among great men. Commend not a man for his beauty, neither abhor a man for his outward appearance. But right off the rip, it said, wisdom lifted up the head of him that is of low degree. You see, because when you have wisdom, you know that, your perspective on life puts you on a higher level than the average man. And that wisdom also comes with humility, to where, you're able to operate in every aspect of society. A wise man is able to go into a room of millionaires and scientists and still be able to dialect, but he can also go into a room of niggas and still know how to move. See what I'm saying? Because wisdom lifted up the head of him that is low degree. So even though you may not have, possessions, even though you may lose things, even though you feel like you get the short end of the stick, end of the day, the head is lifted up through the gift that Yahawah gives us, man. It says, commend not a man for his beauty, neither abhor a man for his outward appearance, right? Hey, and that's why, you never know when you come in contact with angels, man. Certain characters you might meet in this life, you might think like, man, he's kind of odd, or that was kind of a weird interaction. But just because a man has a off appearance Doesn't mean you can't find wisdom from that. But that also means that people that do have that luxury and lavish like appearance, that also means that, they not always wise, man. A lot of people with money, they have top advisors. There's always a team around, the fucking face, man. It's not always the main guy making the decisions. But let's keep going. Sirach 11 verse 3, it says, the bee is little among such as fly, but her fruit is the chief of sweet things. Boast not of thy clothing and raiment, and exalt not thyself in the day of honor. For the works of the Lord are wonderful, and his works among men are hidden. Okay? So it says, boast not of thy clothing and raiment. And, that just goes deeper than what you wear, but that goes into, everything that Yahawah blesses us with. Your living situation, your car situation, your women's situation. We are not to boast in those things. For one, they could be taken away, but for two, no matter what we have within us, we still gotta endure, whatever's in part of our house. You see, because the underdog, he's the one that always gets laughed at. And that doesn't mean you can't go buy yourself new clothes and shit like that, but it's the initial doubt that these people have, man, that should turn into motivation, man. When people laugh us and try to write us off, that should really trigger you in a righteous manner to keep going and to keep believing and to seeing these things through. Because Yahawah said, blessed are they that weep now, for then you shall laugh. Sirach chapter 11 verses 5, it says, many kings have sat upon the ground, and one that was never thought. Kings have sat upon the ground, and one that was never thought of hath worn the crown. Many mighty men have been greatly disgraced, and the honorable delivered into other men's hands. All right, so it says many kings have sat upon the ground. Right, so a lot of dudes who were in high positions, a lot of dudes that were living luxury lifestyles, fucking the baddest bitches, eating the nicest foods, driving the nicest cars, spending money whenever they want, they've been humbled, man. And ultimately, prophetic wise, the day of the Lord is going to humble everybody. I believe that's in Isaiah. Oh man, I can't quote it, but he said, the day of the Lord, all the proud shall be humbled, man. So it says many kings have sat upon the ground, and one that was never thought of has worn the crown. Obviously, we know Yahawah is the one that people don't consider to be, the ruler of the universe. But also think of King David, man. King David, he was a sheep herder. He wasn't thought of to be a king, man. Right? King David wasn't thought of to be a king. And yet, he rose to that position. And so right now, us here in America, Babylon the Great, we in our sheep herder phase, man. We in that phase where Yahawah is keeping us on standby for something great, but our time in the movie hasn't came in yet. So his brothers in Chicago say you gotta stay down until you come up, man. Because King David, he might have been sheep herding for a time, man, and he probably knew he had something inside of him. But Yahawah had to bring him the opportunity. He didn't go out there and try to promote himself. He humbled down, stayed humble, which, David was a very meek man. And eventually Yahawah exalted him, man. The scriptures say that all the time, man. Let's get there. A couple precepts on meekness. This is Psalms 147:5. It says, great is our Lord, and of great power. His understanding is infinite. The Lord Yahawah lifted up the meek. He casted down the wicked to the ground. Sirach 10:14. The Lord had cast down the thrones of proud princes and set up the meek in their stead. The Lord had plucked up the roots of proud nations and planted the lowly in their place. The Lord overthrew countries of the heathen and destroyed them from the foundations of the earth. You see, so being meek, having that meekness, having that humility, has payoffs to it. And that's part of that, underdog spirit. Because, if you always, if you watch, stories, animes, movies, it's a common theme. The underdog always, turns out to be like the common man, but there's something great inside of him. You see? And soon, Yahawah Shemel Shah is going to shine his light upon all the men that have been fighting and have been enduring. He's already doing it now by increasing brothers in the faith, and the water Yahawah Shemel Shah for doing that. But ultimately we have blessings to look forward to, brothers. And you just gotta speak it into existence and believe it. Because, hey, the Most High is not unrighteous to forget your works and labor of love, man. So all the fucking bullshit we gotta do to keep roofs over our heads, and brothers who got kids to feed your kids, it's minute in comparison to the reward for doing so. A lot of people, they don't see the work behind the scenes. The brothers, we was just together the other night, man, and we were watching the like the Showtime Access videos when they be showing them boxing matches. A lot of people, they don't watch the work that comes into being a champion. They just watch the shine and the glory, man. But the thing about Great Millstone is that you're gonna witness brothers become great, man. I'm gonna just say it like that. You're gonna watch brothers become great because their works can be seen day in and day out, man. All right, a lot of people can't say that, But, one thing that these other people can't say is that we not working our ass off, man, because we want to get out of here. Hey, bro, it's just that serious. All right? It's just that serious, man. But, I don't want to keep ranting. Just some videos just on my spirit. Lord willing, this is edifying. All praise, honor, and glory. It goes to Yahawah, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles. Double honors to the elders of Great Millstone. Yahawah Shemel Shah, Brakathum, Total Full Shalom, shalom.